So, in most of my videos around Pune, what you mostly see is close-ups of birds or animals and less about the places or behind the scene shots. This time, however, I have tried to capture my rides and trips, which would give you an insight of the places I have visited and how I shoot my videos. This monsoon season I have visited various different locations around Pune. Some were birding trips, while others were mainly treks and hikes to some interesting places. In this video, I have brought to you the incredible natural sights as well as some birds that I was lucky to capture. So, for visiting Saswad, I use this road through Diveghat not only because it is the shortest way, but in this season it looks beautiful and I enjoy the ride through these hilly twists and turns of this road. The early morning ride is very refreshing and would make you feel energetic. This place Diveghat and the hills around is also a place where you can spot birds and animals, and the adventure starts from here itself. So in other words, Diveghat itself is a good place to look for birds. The only adversity is that the hills are quite steep and are not so easy to climb. Most of my rides through Diveghat happens at night because I like to reach the grassland at the first light of dawn, which is the best time for birding and even for sighting of wolves and foxes. But this time I started late to capture the beauty of Diveghat. After crossing Diveghat, I went to Waghapur this time, which includes quite a bit of off-roading. All the villages from Banpuri to Singapore to Amblegaon has this kind of hilly areas which can be good birding places. So I choose a couple of spots to visit in a day which are close to each other. Not all the spots can be covered in a single ride. This road itself towards the hills of Waghapur is quite a fruitful place for birding. The nightjar and francolin videos that you have seen in the earlier grassland videos are captured right on this road. The horizon opens up and the grassland starts after this brief ride, and you will be able to see the hills. These flat lands just before the hills are the spots where you should look for grassland birds. Francolins, bush quails, wren quails are frequent here. In some trips, I get to see a few common birds or residents usually. Some other days I don't get to see anything at all. In this visit, I got to get close to a few commoners.
Hello and welcome once again to the channel, guys. I'm filming this just to give you an insight of how exactly I shoot my photos or videos. Many of you have been asking about the camera and lens that I use. So here it is, my setup. It's a very basic body, a beginner level body, Nikon D3300, and I'm using the 200 to 500mm lens. I've been using this body for last 5 years now, and it has been producing very good results. Some of you might think that you need a very good camera body, an expensive one, to photograph birds, but it's not always true. You can get good results with this type of beginner level body also. The only drawback is that it doesn't perform that well in low light conditions, or it doesn't have a perfectly fast autofocus system. But if you are patient enough, you can get good result out of this body also. But for birding, you need a good telephoto lens at least. So I'm using the 200 to 500mm lens here. I have used the Tamron 150 to 600mm lens also, both the generation 1 and generation 2, along with this one. But this one has produced the best result for me. So if you have seen my previous videos, all of them have been shot on this body. The point I'm trying to make here is that if you are a beginner, don't go for investing on an expensive body. You can start from anywhere. Rather than focusing on gear, I think a wildlife photographer or a birder should be focusing on his skills of how to get close to a bird. Rather than chasing a bird, you should be waiting at a spot which is frequented by the bird. If you wait at a spot and observe bird behaviors, chances are that you will get better shots. By chasing a bird, you can get shots of a perched bird, but if you want to photograph bird behaviors like feeding or fighting, you have to wait at one place and wait for the bird to be used to with your presence. That's all for the birding tips and Q&As for today. Let me know in the comment section if you have any other queries, and please enjoy the rest of the video.
The first bird I saw that morning was a common wood shrike. This insectivorous species was munching on termites, and for searching the termites, the bird had to perch low near the ground. This place is favorite among insectivorous species as it had several termite nests here and there. Among other commoners, bee-eaters were in good numbers. Plain prenia is a quite common bird here and allows you to get close if you are patient. I sat near this little shrub or bush-like plant for a while, about 10 minutes or so, where I first spotted it. It came back to its favorite spot and started preening or grooming itself, and allowed me to take some close-up shots and clips. Once you spend some time with it, the bird becomes used to with your presence and allows you to move and make different compositions. At the very same spot, just a few steps ahead, a thorny little plant was being frequented by Indian silverbills and scaly-breasted munias. The waiting game works here too. This bird was also calm and most probably claiming this small plant as his nesting place. At this time the bird starts to build their nest as there is plenty of food everywhere. I was planning a different composition with this subject with a smooth background, and the bird was kind enough to give me exactly that. The munias at this time are busy munching on seeds of grass. It's hard to get them at eye level, but it was great to see the bird totally at ease and doing its own thing without even being bothered about my presence. It is always great to capture an active bird rather than a simply perched one. On this day, this was all I got. Not all days at grassland are most fruitful. Not every time you get to see the fox or the wolves. This is a different morning at a very different place. This place is called Velhe, a village somewhere between Siagar and Pabeghat. This reservoir or lake view in the early morning sun looked mesmerizing, and I could not stop myself from taking a quick stop at this beautiful place with no one around. Later we headed towards a waterfall called Madheghat Waterfall. It was a little hike through a scenic place. To create good content or to bring you a complete experience of a place, it is very much essential to capture the landscape beautifully. This lesson on places are the best place to try out your skills. In a part of the country where water shortage is clearly imminent, these monsoon streams becomes the most calming and blissful elements of nature that greenifies the landscape and makes lives much easier for every living being. These tiny streams accumulate to give birth to one of the nature's finest wonders, a waterfall. It's very simple and primitive, but has something very unique and interesting that attracts and amazes everyone. The landscape that looks dry and arid most of the year has now become a view soothing to our eyes. No matter how many times we see this change or how long we look at this view, it's something never goes out of its glory and continues to lure in people of all ages and mindset. The sharp cliffside, rocky patches, flowing long leaves of grass, there is beauty everywhere. It's a scenery perfected at every intricate details, every tiny bush minutely adjusted to its rightful place. The dry dead bare branches reminds of those not lucky enough to live this day. And birds are the spirit animals that brings magic to the landscape and fills us with a sense that life could be limitless. We encountered this short-toed snake eagle on our way, and it was patient enough to let us approach. This insight would help viewers to understand the distance that is kept to capture the images and clips. It's the duty of every nature lover, birder or wildlife photographer to ensure not to disturb the subject while we capture the images. Here is what you would see normally captured with a 55mm lens, and this is the close-up at 500mm. I use the distant hills far behind the subject as the backdrop. Moving forward towards the subject would result in a low-angle shot of the bird with the sky as a background. I personally prefer the eye-level shot with a pleasing green background. Landscapes are incomplete without dramatic clouds. The monsoon clouds makes the landscapes ever more interesting. To capture the movements of the clouds, I make time lapses, and it's a tool in photography that has the power to dramatize the scene and gives you a feel of being at that moment. Time-lapse photography not only shows passage of time, but beautifies the landscape, showing the changes that affect the location. It's a technique, if creatively used, can be utilized to achieve all sort of effects in filmmaking and storytelling. Here's some of my favorite landscape shots I captured in this trip. Another early morning ride, and this time I'm at Jejuri grassland. It was still raining as I arrived, and the sky is still overcast. Expected a lot early morning bird movements, but got nothing this time. Had to be satisfied instead with the landscape again. The morning shower cleared up the sky. Visibility was at maximum, cause this looks very different at other times with dust and haze covering up most of it. I spent the day at this lakeside hoping to see some birds. The evening turned out to be better. I was pleased with the sighting of the pied cuckoo. It was jumping from one branch to another, munching on caterpillars. Oops, that's my friend clicking pictures at a high speed. Couple of poses by the pied cuckoo. The evening and the lakeside proved to be fruitful as this little guy with a spark of blue flew in and perched right in front of me. Soon others showed up. It seems that the place has good number of them. Once they got used to with me, they perched even closer and became busy in their daily routine, scratching and preening themselves. As time passed, I got to see more activities and interactions. Some were fighting or poking each other, while most were busy looking for prey, diving into water, mostly returning empty-beaked. Soon one got a fish and started calling with the fish in its beak. But it won't swallow it, kept holding it in its beak. I thought that the fish might be too large to swallow for it, but soon I realized it's calling its chick who's waiting to be fed. And then this magical event happened. My patience paid off. That's the beauty of the waiting game. You never know how you are gonna get surprised. And wait, the surprise packages are not over yet. This time it got bigger. A huge eagle owl landed on an eucalyptus tree just behind me. I quickly clicked a couple of images and then it disappeared behind the tree line again. This is a one-day trip to Kalu waterfall for which we had to travel through Malsej Ghat. At the first viewpoint, while enjoying the beautiful view, I was quite surprised to see a crested bunting up close. The most amazing thing was that it was calm and not at all bothered about my presence. A bird always played hard to get, just appeared in front of me and sat there preening, scratching and stretching for a couple of minutes at a place where I least expected it to be. That's why I carry the big lens with me on all trips, expecting the unexpected, ready to capture the surprises nature throws at me. Before leaving the place, this charismatic little bird came and sat right next to me, giving me this incredible frame. Even at the busiest of places, with relentless traffic and crowd, some birds try to find shelter and food. This is another viewpoint right at Malsej Ghat where every car stops by and tourists take snaps with the incredible wide landscape. I was making time lapses again where the bird caught my sight, a Malabar whistling thrush. He flew into a slim waterfall and caught a tiny crab to feed his partner. A dusky crag martin was building its nest at a nearby cliffside, a bird hard to capture in flight. We drove further towards our destination Kalu waterfall. It rained all through our way, and finally our trek began through a forest. A 3 hour trek through a dense forest. We tried to reach the base of the waterfall, but it was already quite late. Some of us was ready for some watery adventure, others were busy capturing the beauty through their lenses. The trek was tiring, and to make it worse, the cloud cleared up and the sun was shining bright at us. And this forest was really humid and hot. The occasional clearing inside the forest allowed us to peek through the canopy to see the two-layered waterfall. Kalu waterfall is the highest waterfall in Malsej Ghat region and is one of the less explored places in this region. Most of the trek route is covered in a canopy, and we saw posters with several different wild animal pictures like leopard and hyenas. These posters were put up by the Thane Forest Department to make the people aware about their presence. However, we got to hear only calls of hornbills en route, which has otherwise a mystical silence. The mountain and the waterfall was frequently visible through the canopy, otherwise it would have been really difficult for us to navigate through this dense forest. The trek route sometimes got covered under the overgrown undergrowth of the forest, making it somewhat difficult to be sure about the directions we went on. The popular trek routes used to be marked so no one gets lost, but not in this case. So we went on following our instincts until finally we reached a spot from where we could see the waterfall and the Kalu river right in front of us. At this spot we stopped for a while to take some photos and videos. The views was just unbelievable. As we moved forward, at every few steps we would get a different view of the waterfall and the rapids of the Kalu river, each one better than the previous. Finally we reached at the river. At this point we had a spectacular view of the fall and everyone got engaged in different activities. After crossing the rapid flowing river, my friend Sriram were trying to build his own Ram Setu over the river so that lazy people like us can cross the river. While I was tired at this point and dipped my bare foot in the cold river to wash off all the tiredness of the trek. The river in front of us was so welcoming that I could not stop myself from taking a dip into it. Thanks to Monojit who captured me taking the holy dip into the river with the mighty two-layered Kalu waterfall in the backdrop. The memories will last forever in my